Monday Raw just witnessed something extraordinary, something that one but Roman Reigns did in 2009 WWE's Royal Rumble men's match. The electricity in the arena was palpable from the moment the doors opened that Monday night. January 29th, 2026 would go down as a date forever etched in the memories of everyone who witnessed what transpired on WWE Monday Night Raw. There was something different in the air, a feeling that couldn't quite be explained but could definitely be felt. Fans filed into their seats with an extra buzz of anticipation, phones already out and ready to capture whatever magic or mayhem the evening would bring. Little did they know that they were about to witness the return of the most dominant force in WWE history and a confrontation that would shake the very foundation of Monday Night Raw. The show had been building momentum throughout the night, with solid matches and compelling storylines unfolding across each segment. The commentary team was firing on all cylinders, hyping up the action and keeping viewers engaged with their analysis and banter. The crowd was hot, responding enthusiastically to everything presented to them, creating that perfect atmosphere where anything feels possible. Championship matches had been teased, rivalries had been intensified, and the WWE Universe was thoroughly invested in everything happening before their eyes. Then came the segment that would change everything. Bron Breakker's music hit, and the arena erupted with a mixture of cheers and boos that only a truly compelling performer can generate. The second-generation superstar has been on an absolute tear since his arrival on the main roster, demolishing everyone put in his path with a combination of raw power, surprising agility, and an intensity that seems almost primal. He marched to the ring with that signature scowl on his face, his muscular frame moving with purpose and aggression. Everything about Bron Breakker screams danger, from his hard-hitting style to the way he carries himself like a predator constantly hunting for his next victim. Breakker grabbed a microphone as he stood in the center of the ring, his chest heaving slightly from the intensity he brings to even the simple act of making an entrance. The crowd's noise began to settle as he raised the mic to his lips, that familiar look of barely contained rage etched across his features. He began speaking about dominance, about how he had proven himself as the most dangerous man on Monday Night Raw, about how nobody in the locker room could match his intensity or his ability to inflict punishment. His words dripped with confidence bordering on arrogance, but it was the kind of arrogance that felt earned, backed up by weeks and months of absolutely decimating his competition. He talked about his lineage, about coming from the legendary Steiner family, about having wrestling in his blood and violence in his DNA. Breakker reminded everyone watching that he wasn't just some rookie getting a push because of his family name. He was a legitimate monster who had earned every opportunity through sheer brutality and undeniable talent. The way he delivered his promo had an edge to it, a realness that made you believe every word coming out of his mouth. He wasn't playing a character. He was simply being himself, amplified and unleashed for the world to see. As Breakker continued his proclamation of dominance, he issued an open challenge to anyone in the back who thought they could step up and test themselves against him. It was a bold move, the kind of challenge that could backfire spectacularly if the wrong person decided to answer. The crowd began to buzz with speculation, wondering who might emerge to confront this seemingly unstoppable force. Names of various roster members were shouted from different sections of the arena, fans hoping their favorites would get the opportunity to step up to the challenge. The seconds ticked by in tense anticipation. Breakker stood in the ring, microphone still in hand, that cocky smirk spreading across his face as no one immediately appeared to answer his challenge. He began to mock the locker room, suggesting that everyone back there knew better than to step into the ring with him, that fear had gripped the entire roster and paralyzed them from taking action. The crowd's reaction was mixed, some booing his arrogance while others seemed to appreciate the brashness and confidence on display. Then it happened. The arena went completely dark. Not the gradual dimming that usually accompanies an entrance, but a sudden, absolute blackness that caught everyone off guard. The crowd's noise shifted from anticipation to confusion and then to something approaching electric excitement. A hush fell over the thousands in attendance, everyone straining to see or hear what was coming next. The darkness seemed to stretch on forever, though in reality it was probably only a few seconds. The tension was unbearable, with every person in the building on the edge of their seat. And then the sound hit. That unmistakable, bone-chilling, earth-shattering entrance music that has signaled the arrival of pure destruction for over 2 decades. The opening notes of Brock Lesnar's theme song exploded through the arena's sound system like a bomb going off, and the crowd absolutely lost their minds. The roar that erupted from the WWE universe was deafening, a wall of sound that seemed to shake the very foundations of the building. Phones shot up into the air trying to capture the moment. People jumped to their feet, screaming themselves hoarse. This was the kind of genuine, organic reaction that money can't buy and scripts can't manufacture. Brock Lesnar appeared at the top of the entrance ramp, and the sight of him was enough to send shivers down the spine of everyone watching. The Beast incarnate looked exactly as terrifying as ever, perhaps even more so after time away from WWE television. His massive frame filled the entranceway, all muscle and barely contained violence. That trademark scowl was plastered across his face. His eyes locked onto the ring where Bron Breakker stood, the younger man's confident expression already beginning to shift into something approaching concern. Paul Heyman stood beside Lesnar, microphone already in hand, that knowing smirk on his face that suggested he had been waiting for exactly this moment. The advocate of the Beast looked like a man who had just played the perfect card in a high-stakes poker game. The way he stood next to Lesnar, gesturing toward the ring, toward Breakker, told a story all on its own. This wasn't a random appearance. This was calculated, planned, designed to send a very specific message to a very specific person. Lesnar began his approach to the ring, and the way he moved was mesmerizing in its intensity. Each step was deliberate, purposeful, the walk of a man who knows exactly what he's capable of and has absolutely nothing to prove but chooses to prove it anyway. The cameras caught every detail of his expression, the way his jaw was clenched, the way his eyes never wavered from Breakker, the way his hands flexed at his sides as if already anticipating violence. This was Brock Lesnar in his element, returning to the place where he has created countless iconic moments and left a trail of destruction that spans decades. In the ring, Bron Breakker's demeanor had completely shifted. The cocky, arrogant young lion who had been running his mouth moments earlier now looked like he was staring down an actual beast. To his credit, Breakker didn't back down or show fear, but there was definitely a new calculation happening behind his eyes. He was reassessing, trying to figure out how to handle a situation that had escalated far beyond what he had probably anticipated when he issued his open challenge. The microphone hung loosely in his hand, forgotten for the moment as he watched Lesnar's approach. Lesnar reached the ring and paused at the apron, his eyes still fixed on Breakker with an intensity that could melt steel. The crowd was at a fever pitch, chanting Lesnar's name, the noise level reaching almost painful volumes. Heyman said something to Lesnar, though the words couldn't be heard over the crowd noise, and the Beast nodded slightly before pulling himself up onto the apron with effortless strength. The way he moved between the ropes, entering the ring with that unique Lesnar style, was a reminder of just how athletic and agile he is despite his massive size. Now both men stood in the ring, separated by maybe 15 feet of canvas, two absolute physical specimens representing different eras of WWE dominance. Brock Lesnar, the established legend, the conqueror who has destroyed everyone ever put in front of him, the man who has main event WrestleMania multiple times and held nearly every championship WWE has to offer. And Bron Breakker, the young gun with everything to prove, the second-generation superstar trying to step out of his family's shadow and create his own legacy of destruction. The contrast was striking, and the potential for violence hung in the air like a storm about to break. Paul Heyman stepped forward, raising his microphone with that theatrical flair he's perfected over decades in the business. The crowd quieted somewhat, knowing that whatever the wise man was about to say would be worth hearing. Heyman began to speak in that distinctive voice, that perfect blend of hype man and intellectual that only he can pull off. He talked about Brock Lesnar's accomplishments, about his dominance, about how the Beast incarnate had heard Bron Breakker running his mouth about being the most dangerous man on Raw and decided it was time to provide some much-needed education. Heyman's words were carefully chosen, walking the line between showing respect to Breakker's undeniable talent while also making it crystal clear that there were levels to this game, and Lesnar existed on a plane far above anyone currently on the roster. He spoke about Breaker's lineage, acknowledging the Steiner legacy, but pointed out that bloodlines only get you so far in this business. Eventually, you have to step into the ring with someone who can expose whether you're truly ready for the top of the mountain or just another pretender who talks a big game. The crowd hung on every word, the tension in the arena reaching almost unbearable levels. Breaker's jaw was clenched tight, his free hand balled into a fist at his side. You could see the internal struggle playing out on his face, the desire to prove himself warring with the very real understanding of what Brock Lesnar is capable of doing to another human being. Heyman continued his verbal assault, not cruel but certainly pointed, making the case that Lesnar's return wasn't just about coming back to WWE but specifically about addressing the young upstart who seemed to have forgotten that there were still monsters lurking in WWE that made everyone else look tame by comparison. Then Heyman extended the challenge on Lesnar's behalf. Not for later, not at some future premium live event, but right here, right now. The crowd exploded at the prospect, chanting for the match to happen, wanting to see these two forces of nature collide in real time. Heyman handed the microphone to Lesnar, and the entire arena seemed to hold its breath. Brock Lesnar on the microphone is always a fascinating proposition, because he doesn't speak often, so when he does, it carries extra weight. Lesnar raised the microphone slowly, his eyes still locked on Breaker, that trademark smirk starting to form on his face. When he finally spoke, his voice cut through the arena like a knife. He didn't need flowery language or extended promos. In just a few sentences, Lesnar made his point crystal clear. He acknowledged that Breaker was talented, that he had potential, that he came from good stock. But potential means nothing until it's tested against the absolute best. And there's nobody in WWE history who has been more dominant, more destructive, more successful than Brock Lesnar. The Beast told Breaker that he had two choices. He could accept this challenge, step up and find out what it's really like to be in the ring with a legitimate monster, and earn the kind of respect that only comes from surviving combat with the best. Or he could back down, walk away, and forever be known as the guy who talked a big game until a real challenge presented itself. The way Lesnar delivered this ultimatum was perfect, not mocking but matter-of-fact, laying out the reality of the situation with brutal honesty. For a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, Bron Breakker stood silent, the microphone in his hand, the eyes of the world upon him. This was a career-defining moment, the kind of crossroads where a wrestler's legacy can be cemented or destroyed based on a single decision. The smart play would probably be to decline, to say he wasn't prepared, to request the match be scheduled for a future date where he could prepare properly. But Bron Breakker didn't get where he is by making the smart play. He got here by being absolutely fearless and willing to fight anyone, anywhere, anytime. Breakker raised his microphone, and the crowd leaned in collectively to hear his response. When he spoke, his voice was steady, filled with determination and a healthy dose of insanity that you need to possess to willingly step into combat with Brock Lesnar. He told Lesnar that he didn't issue an open challenge expecting cupcakes and easy nights. He issued it because he wanted to prove himself against the best, and if Brock Lesnar wanted to answer that call, then Breakker was more than happy to show the so-called Beast exactly what this new generation was capable of. The crowd erupted in approval at Breakker's acceptance, appreciating the guts it took to agree to face Lesnar on essentially zero notice. Breakker dropped the microphone, the sound of it hitting the canvas amplified through the arena, a symbolic gesture that the time for talking was over. He immediately assumed a fighting stance, his body coiled and ready despite the insanity of what he had just agreed to. Lesnar smiled, that terrifying smile that suggests he was hoping for exactly this response, and handed his microphone back to Heyman. Both men began circling each other, and the atmosphere in the arena shifted from excited anticipation to something approaching religious fervor. The crowd was chanting, screaming, creating a din that the commentators had to shout over to be heard. The camera work was phenomenal, capturing the intensity on both faces, the size comparison between the two massive men, the way they moved in the ring like caged animals looking for the perfect moment to strike. Then they locked up. The initial collar and elbow tie-up between Lesnar and Breakker was a test of strength and will, both men straining against each other, muscles bulging with effort. For a moment, they seemed evenly matched, neither able to gain an advantage, both pouring everything into asserting dominance in this first exchange. But then Lesnar's experience and raw power began to show, and he forced Breakker backward, step by step, until the younger man's back was against the ropes. The referee called for a break, and Lesnar complied, backing away with his hands raised. But the message had been sent. Breakker's expression showed he had felt Lesnar's power, understood on a visceral level what he was dealing with. To his credit, Breakker didn't seem discouraged. If anything, it seemed to fire him up even more. He exploded off the ropes with a clothesline that Lesnar ducked, and the dance was on. What followed was an absolute war between two of the most physically gifted athletes in WWE history. Breakker showed no fear, going toe-to-toe with the Beast, delivering devastating offense that would have finished most opponents. His trademark power moves, the ones that had demolished everyone else on the roster, were on full display. Brutal clotheslines, crushing shoulder tackles, suplexes that shook the ring. The crowd was going absolutely insane, unable to believe they were witnessing this kind of fight on regular television. But Lesnar absorbed it all with the kind of resilience that has defined his entire career. Every time Breakker seemed to gain momentum, Lesnar would shut it down with a devastating counter. German suplexes sent Breakker flying across the ring, each one executed with that perfect Lesnar technique that makes them look even more impactful than they already are. The sound of Breakker's body hitting the canvas echoed through the arena with each suplex, and the crowd counted along, gasping at the height and force of each throw. The back-and-forth nature of the match was incredible. Breakker proved he belonged on this level, showing heart and toughness that earned grudging respect from even the most skeptical fans. He kicked out of moves that finish most matches. He countered Lesnar's offense with impressive awareness and ring IQ. The young lion was giving everything he had, leaving nothing in reserve, fighting with the kind of desperation and determination that makes for legendary performances. But there's a reason Brock Lesnar is called the Beast Incarnate. As the match wore on, his experience and conditioning began to show. While Breakker was starting to slow, his movements becoming slightly less crisp, Lesnar seemed to be just getting started. It's the difference between someone who has been in countless main event wars and someone still relatively new to this level of competition. Lesnar began to take control, his offense becoming more sustained, more vicious, more inevitable. The finish came suddenly and brutally. Lesnar caught Breakker attempting a high-risk move, showcasing that freakish strength and agility that has defined his career. He transitioned immediately into the F5, his devastating finishing maneuver, and the way he executed it was picture-perfect. Breakker went flying, his body rotating through the air before crashing to the canvas with sickening impact. Lesnar went for the cover, hooking the leg, and the referee's hand hit the mat 3 times before Breakker could even think about kicking out. The bell rang, Lesnar's music hit, and the arena exploded with noise. Brock Lesnar had returned to Monday Night Raw and immediately reasserted his dominance by defeating one of the company's most pushed and protected young stars. Lesnar stood over Breakker's prone body, that familiar pose with one foot planted and arms raised, the conquering hero and destroyer all rolled into one. Paul Heyman entered the ring, raising Lesnar's arm in victory, shouting about how his client had proven once again why he is the most dominant force in WWE history. But the story didn't end with the pinfall. As Lesnar's music continued to play and the celebration continued, Bron Breakker began to stir. He rolled to his hands and knees, clearly hurting, clearly disappointed, but showing the kind of resilience that suggests this loss wouldn't define him. The crowd began to cheer for Breakker, acknowledging the incredible effort he had shown, the guts it took to accept the challenge, and the legitimate fight he had given to Brock Lesnar. Lesnar noticed Breakker getting to his feet and stopped his celebration. The two men stood facing each other once again, the tension palpable. For a moment, it seemed like round 2 might be about to start, with Breakker looking ready to go again despite the loss. But then something unexpected happened. Lesnar extended his hand. The crowd gasped at this show of respect from the Beast, a gesture he rarely makes to anyone. Breakker stared at the offered hand, his face showing the internal debate. Pride warred with respect, disappointment with honor. The arena was silent, everyone waiting to see how this moment would play out.